Okay, excellent. Loud and clear. Thanks, Fina. Thanks, everyone. Great. Okay, well, welcome to our webinar on cryptocurrencies. And basically on one of probably the hottest topics on the market right now about how to stop the taxman from plundering your cryptos. So without doubt, you couldn't get a more hotter topic at the moment for so many reasons. It's interesting because right now we're dealing with a whole phase where the market, of course, went up like crazy in 2017, and 2018 so far has been a major retracement, and the media has been spelling doom and gloom and everyone's saying all kinds of things. Well, let me start off by saying I have no doubt that cryptos are here to stay and are the way of the future, and you'll hear that more as we go through. And I think for those who are willing to be genuine, serious investors in cryptos and not fearful speculators who are dependent upon everybody else and following the media, are going to do very well in the days to come, because we really are dealing in an interesting and exciting time. So today, this webinar last time was pretty much packed to the brim, and so hence we decided to do this encore webinar to people to basically give you a further opportunity for those who missed it, and of course last time I didn't give access to the replay. So just make sure it's going to go for about an hour, about 50 minutes to an hour, and then I'm going to be taking questions. And last time we had a heap of questions, so what I would ask for questions, which I know will be plenty, is please make sure, what I suggest you do is don't type them in during the webinar because they will get lost with all the comments. It's really important to hold them to the end and put them in there. So if you're on a computer, type them on a Word document or somewhere where you can cut and paste and put them straight in. If you're on a phone, just hold off or put a note somewhere. And then that way you can be sure that we'll get to your question, because as much as possible I want to answer every one of your questions today and really help you get an understanding of a very important issue with regards to all of this. Just make sure also you switch off your distractions, social media, phones on silent, things like that. And we'll get started. Like I said, about an hour, take some questions. So I expect the webinar to be over in 75 minutes. So by 6:15 Perth time at 9:15 Eastern Standard Time. Okay, so what you're going to be learning today is how you're a slave to the system and how it's affecting you. And certainly when it comes to taxes, how so many people are slaves, even in their mind, if not in real life. And it's amazing how, for example, when they found with like an elephant, but if you tether an elephant to a pole as a baby and he grows up and can walk away and pull the pole away any time, the elephant stays because he still believes the pole constrains him. And so many people are in that position. We're living in a world now where things are changing, where we're getting freedom, but we still believe that we're slaves to the system, and we still believe that it's affecting us. And so you'll be hearing about that one. And some of my other courses I do, I'm really big on teaching people around the mindset around taxes and government, and seeing amazing shifts in people once they realise the power. And you'll get a sneak preview tonight about what you can do and some of the amazing truths around taxes and around governments. You're going to be learning about how you can cut tax on your cryptos by 50 to 100% with pretty much minimal risk. And once you understand the system, and I do have a fortunate advantage having worked for the ATO for 10 years, as well as having a law firm and being a lawyer who represented clients with the ATO and with ASIC and everyone, including taking on speeding fines and becoming quite well known in the official kind of sovereign rebel movement in taking on governments in court cases, before now I've settled into doing more of this kind of stuff. So one of the things you will learn is by having the right mindset and learning how to structure yourself and how to deal with the system, you really can keep most of your money once you know how to do it. We'll be discussing about what makes cryptocurrency so hard for the ATO to tax and how to use this for your advantage. We'll be looking at how to correctly structure the cryptos, and believe me, this is very, very important. And one of the things as an ATO auditor in the past is that most people I find do not realise the seriousness of having the right paperwork in place and the right structuring when it comes to dealing with this, and that will kill you and literally cripple you, because it can be the difference between giving away nearly half of your money and giving away a significant less component of it. And we'll be teaching about the difference between legal tax planning versus illegal tax avoidance evasion. So what I'll be doing at the end of the webinar is I will be making an offer to those who stay at the end to ensure that you keep most of your crypto gains and not be raided by the ATO and fast-going broke governments desperate to grab your cash. What I also will be doing is giving a free gift to those of you who stay to the end. So those of you who stick through and invest your time, you will walk away with a gift, which is a book of mine, which normally which I charge or don't give away unless people become paying clients. The offer will be subject to conditions, but completely 100% risk-free, win-win. And even if you do not get this offer, I'm confident you're going to get tremendous value from my webinar today. Like I said, by all means, in the comments, I will be asking for participation because I really want you to be interactive and involved in the webinar, asking your questions. So please, interact when I ask questions as much as possible. But if you've got questions about the topic, make sure you save them to the end. The only caveat I'll give is if the question you raise is absolutely directly on point with what I'm speaking about in that exact moment, and you can put it in, I may be able to weave it in with the question. But if I can't, I will just say to you, look, I will remind you to take it to the end. Okay. So the big problem that people are facing is you invested in cryptos and made real gains. However, you know or you strongly suspect that you're not properly structured and you genuinely fear the taxman is going to walk away with a huge slice of your pie. And so really knowing in a way you're still a slave to a system not set up for your benefit. So who feels like that? Who's here because they know that they really have got some problems with their structuring or they suspect that things aren't being done properly? Yep, great. Getting plenty of ones. Fantastic. So well done for acknowledging that. That's very important to realise that and to take action, because this is, and I've just had a comment saying, I hate paying tax more than I should. Well, believe me, I'm with you, and you'll hear more about it that as we go through this webinar, how much I hate doing that and why I actually do these webinars, because of my passion and my belief in people paying only what they legally should pay and no more than that at all. So does any of this sound like you? And if this is you, just kind of type yes, and you can even put a number like 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, because the first one being 1, then 2. So just so I get a bit of an idea about who's here and what you're really going through. So firstly, you're paying way too much taxes in your business and crypto investments. Does anyone feel that way? Like you're just like, screw this, I'm paying way too much tax. Yep. Yep, a few. If the ATO came after you, you'd be caught with your pants down running up the door. In other words, you know full well that you really aren't structured properly and you've made some gains and you've got some problems. And remember, everything's confidential. I won't name you. Just give me a yes if that's you. You know that you potentially got some challenges to face. Great. Yep. You haven't planned for your gains. In other words, you pretty much went into cryptocurrencies, really just kind of see what happened. You've made gains way beyond your expectations. It completely caught you off guard. So you've got no overseas structures or Australian structures and have everything in your own name. So just give me that's me or yes if that's you. My experience, by the way, is virtually everyone on this webinar, I am guessing will be in that situation. So great. Yep, quite a few. You feel the system is prejudiced against you, so it's hard to get ahead no matter how much you make. Who feels that? Yep. If so, yep, I feel your pain. And no question about that. We're dealing in a world where governments are really trying to get more than they're entitled to, and we'll be talking more about that. So let me ask you a question. Who knows if you don't do something about your crypto planning, but you're going to walk away paying a fortune in an unwanted donation taxman and delay your journey to freedom from the rat race? Or at the very least, if you're not paying it, you're looking over your shoulders, nervous, hoping that no one comes down the track knocking on your door. Is that you? Just give me a yes. Excellent. Yeah, lots of people. Because being sovereign, it's really defined as the power to govern yourself without any interference from outside sources. So who, based on that, knows that right at this moment they're not sovereign? Just type me if that's you right now. You just know that you're not actually sovereign. Yep. Okay. And believe me, you're going to want to do, that's the journey and that's the path that you want to be, is to become sovereign in terms of where things are going and where the world is going right now when it comes to finances. We're in one of the greatest changes in history, and you'll be hearing more about this shortly. Kerry Packer put it really well when he said, I'm not evading tax in any way, shape or form. Now, of course, I'm minimising my tax. I just love how he says that. He just says, well, obviously, of course I'm minimising my taxes. And as a government, I can tell you not spending it that well that we should be donating you extra. And he even goes as far as to say, if you're not minimising your tax, you want your heads read. So if you're not minimising your tax today, Kerry Packer is basically calling you a mental case. So the point is that minimising your taxes and getting on top of it is critical. And I've never yet met a high net worth client, and I deal with many who come to me, and I deal with everyone from mums and dads to single business owners to small business to very high net worth. And I find that the wealthier people are, the more attention they tend to pay to this area. That's what I'm finding more and more. And what's beautiful about this story with Kerry Packer, this quote, to give you just a little bit of background about it, is that Kerry Packer actually was called in front of the media, and the whole idea was to kind of embarrass him a little bit and make him feel bad for not being a good Australian. That was the whole basis behind this inquiry. And the journalists came ready for war, not realising who they were dealing with. And by the time he'd finished, Kerry Packer had absolutely left them with egg on their faces, looking very, very meek and very embarrassed, because he pretty much said that to him. And by the way, I love what he said, because there's a very good book by a guy called Tim Grover, and some of my mastermind and high net worth clients love that book, called Relentless. And Tim Grover is a super secret weapon coach of many of the world's elite sports athletes in basketball. Like LeBron James, Michael Jordan, many of these guys have used him, Dwayne Wade. And he says that a cleaner, or the word he uses for an absolute relentless superstar, he says never apologise for anything. They stand confident in their decisions, even if they're wrong, they're confident and they stand their ground and don't let themselves be mentally bullied or feel bad about what they've done. They learn from it and move on. That's why I love this response. Really consider that building a business or investing in cryptos in a Western country like Australia is like playing football wearing a 10-kilogram backpack. Imagine going out and playing like the Super Bowl, or playing Australian football, or playing soccer wearing a backpack while the other team doesn't. I mean, the other team has certainly got a major advantage, and although it's possible that you might be super elite and beat them, you're certainly playing at a major disadvantage. Hence why so many of my clients, actually after seeing me, often end up deciding to move offshore and become perpetual travellers, and actually really take that monkey or that backpack off their back and accelerate their wealth. So, okay, a little bit about me and why you should listen to me. From the age of 19, I always hated the amount of tax that you've paid. And I can remember when I was 19, taxes were like something like 55 to 57% was a top rate. And I remember going when I first was told, I thought someone was pulling my leg and having a bit of a joke with me. I was so outraged and horrified, and keep in mind I was a uni student at that time studying a Bachelor of Commerce. I started going to my local library and finding books about great tax planners and great tax avoiders and even evaders. Because back then the ability to avoid tax was much easier. There wasn't all the stuff that we got around now to make it harder. And I was excited to read about many of the greatest people, how they went to Austria, they set up in Liechtenstein, Austria, Luxembourg, and paid no taxes. And I can remember at the time, I started dating a very attractive English girl, and I was really trying to impress her. And I remember she said to me, so what do you see as your purpose? What do you want to do with your life? And the first thing I said instinctively was, I want to get people out of paying tax. Now, I missed out getting the girl. The lie didn't quite work, but I did end up getting my mission and doing what I'm doing now. So I got into this because I literally got fed up with people paying taxes and the money's being misused by government. And in fact, so much so that I became a lawyer and accountant to learn this stuff. And in fact, as a bit of an aside, I was actually one of the early investors in cryptos, and the reason why was I got involved in the underground sovereign movement right back in 2001. And I met some amazing people. Like I met a guy who's the best lawyer I've ever met. He wasn't even licensed. I met a doctor who cured cancer, diabetes, everything, was unlicensed and always had medical boards after him. But literally changed my whole body. I went from having a constantly sick body to a body that was transformed. You know, I met people to this day that were some of the most incredible people I've met. I've met men who literally would go into court and kick judges out of court. I met men who taught me how to take on speeding fines and win, and that's why for a while, my hobby was taking on speeding fines and winning impossible cases just for fun, until I eventually had a personal visit from a top policeman. Very nice to me he was, mind you, but just told me that assigned a special guy to my cases, and that day on I could never win a case. So eventually I just laughed and gave up. The point is, I got taught amazing stuff, and one of the things they got me into was they all told me back in 2001 that cryptos and e-gold and like electronic currencies were the way of the future, and that the world was going to move away from decentralized banking. And so I was back there in the early days investing in these things, made some money, and really just kind of waiting to see this take off, because I always saw incredible future with the cryptos. And I used to actually invest in fact, thanks to cryptos in 2001 and e-gold, I literally got myself 2 years of free time. I'll explain what I mean. I was running a law firm, but I was very sick and I was unhappy with my life and felt out of purpose. And thanks to some cryptos and some and going into cryptos in 2001, I made so much money in 9 months. It literally gave me 2 years of savings to live, not work at all, and just focus on doing that. Then all these cryptos shut down because the government shut them down, because back then it wasn't as advanced as now. It was not peer-to-peer network. It was more centralized kind of currencies. And the result was they ended up shutting it down. But the point was I got 2 years of basically paid for by cryptos to become sovereign and learn the things. So I know a bit what I'm doing when it comes to cryptos, because it's something that interests me. It's something that gets me excited. And when this whole Bitcoin and all that has taken off, I've been so excited about it. And even now, I'm so fortunate in that I've got some wonderful clients who've made millions and millions out of this. And I'm talking about millions. Like, you know, I've got a client who's turned like 10,000 into like 11 million in like very short space of time. And many of his clients have now become my mentors, and they guide me and they show me what to invest in and they tell me what to do. And as a result of it, because I'm helping them structure, it's really helped me get a better and better handle on this whole currencies and technologies and even the best ones to go in. So I've had almost 30 years experience, would you believe it? I've had 10 years at the tax office and 19 plus years in private practice with a law firm, accounting firm, and I've even owned a financial planning investment firm and a mortgage broking firm. And yeah, I've pretty much been there, done that. I've done pretty much just about tried all the things you can think of doing. I've even worked as a demolisher. When I was 18, I had a job on my uncle's site doing demolition of houses. So life has been broad, varied, fun, and I've been on a spiritual journey as well. And I've gone to meet many of the greatest yogis and masters in the world and travel around. So to me, cryptos in this way is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I'm so excited today that we're part of this whole thing and part of this crypto experience. Just a little bit more quickly before we get on with substantive content, I've spoken on the Oasis of the Seas, one of the biggest cruise ships in the world, at international seminar, 2011. I've spoken at many international seminars over the years in Thailand, Fiji, America, boats, you name it. I've shared the stage with these two guys, Richard Branson and Arnold Schwarzenegger, at events. These are my kids. This was taken in Wyoming last year, where we had a fantastic time in country cowboy land. This is my own tax audit to show that, as my own accountant who double checks my stuff told me, he said, "You may be creative out of the box, but but somehow you get away with it, and you're very clean." In other words, I keep my stuff clean. I was named in the Panama Papers in 2016. So if you go on the internet and search under my name, you will see it. Warren Black. There were 5 people named in the Panama Papers. That was the big release of offshore company documents and of famous people. I was named 4 of the Australians named, of the 5 Australians named, were kind of told that they were, dodgy and things like that. They specifically said about me, they said Warren Black basically was found to be basically a clean, running a legitimate practice. I even got interviewed by the ABC because the exact words was, when we got the papers 6 months before they were released, and they were released to us by hackers, they said, we investigated you for months to find out more about you, and we found completely clean. And they said, so we want to interview you because we want to hear from an accountant who does offshore planning, who does it cleanly. And it was actually a great opportunity for me to get my message out and actually share that I thought the tax system was fundamentally screwed in Australia. Anyway, a bit of background about me so you know who you're dealing with. And like I said, if you search Warren Black Panama Papers, you can read all about it for yourself. The cost of not tax planning, the biggest thing I want you to really get today, if nothing else, is by every day you avoid taking actions, you are costing you severely, and you're pretty much leaving yourself open to be the ATO's license to produce money. Very few clients I've met have done any kind of real planning for their cryptos. So they're celebrating big gains and all happy about it, but they're not actually realizing the prospect of some extremely high taxes awaiting them for not dealing with it. So let's take some examples to show you of clients I've dealt with. I mean, Visa names are protected, and I've slightly varied the facts to protect people's names, obviously, and give them privacy. So you've got Chris here, who buys 20 grand of Bitcoin at 1,000 US on the 10th of January 2017. He sells Bitcoin when the price hits $10,000 in October. So in essence, he spent 20K, got 200K, 180K profit. He's very excited, except with no structuring, Chris is potentially going to pay taxes of 40 to 45%, i.e. 75 to 80 grand US taxes. Ouch. And it'll be even more ouch when you realize what the ATO are trying to claim as a taxable event. So this is a really basic example. Like, this is like an entree. This is like beginners. There's other stuff you can do. But just to give you a beginner's example, if Chris had come and seen me before he started or early on in the process, and we put him in a family trust or bucket company, with a bucket company, the maximum tax he'd pay would be around 25, 26%. Plus, the timing makes a difference. E.g., if he'd waited till January, he could have cut his tax bill by 50%. He would have saved himself 30 to 35 grand US in taxes. Who thinks that's pretty sexy and a good thing? Who can see what I'm saying here? Great. Getting quite a few. So you're all still alive? Wonderful. Let's take another example of Jenny. So Jenny buys 20 Ethereum coins at $50 Australian each, at a total cost of $1,000 on the 11th of March 2017. She makes $120K per annum in her job. So Jenny is thinking about selling. Her coins have now shot up. They're worth $1,000 Australian each, total value $200,000. So if Jenny sells now, she makes a $190K profit. However, she's going to pay a tax rate of 45%, i.e. $85,500. So in other words, she'll make $190, she'll pay $85,500, she'll walk away with only $100,000. Now, if Jenny had waited until after March and come and see me and done some planning, we can cut her tax rate straight away by 50%, an extra $42,750 in her pocket. So Jenny really needs to work out the timing of her sale, or if not selling, whether to move everything into a structure right now, that is some pain now but gain later on. In other words, she needs to plan what she's doing, because otherwise she's going to be raped, pillaged and plundered by the taxman. So just give me a wow if you're really getting the seriousness of this problem and the cost that it could give to you by not addressing this. There's a very good comment saying waiting is impractical. In saying that, because of volatility, I understand that comment. In saying that, at least if you know your options, you can make a decision. Like, as an example, right now, the prices have plummeted. It's not a good time to sell. So in Jenny's case, I'd be saying to her, don't sell right now. Wait until after that. If she chooses to sell, that's okay. She just has to realise she'll pay more tax. But at least she knows her options and she can do a cost-benefit analysis. Here's the cost of not planning, just to give you a bit of an idea. So look at the difference between 48.5% tax and 0% tax. And just absorb this for a minute. Okay, so as you can see here, look at the difference in those amounts. Now, let's take a look over 20 years and absorb the difference in these figures here right now. So by 20 years at making 20% per annum, look at the difference in how much you've got simply by tax planning and having the right structure. So the cost of not structuring, and every week and every month you're waiting. I'm asked, tell us where you can get 20% return. You'd be amazed when you live in Australia and you've grown up in a world where 5% is considered reasonable, or 10%, and you actually go and study the offshore investment fund guide as an example, there are numerous funds that have been making those kind of 20% plus return over a number of years consistently. It's just that when most people lack understanding or lack education. Another example is there's some research services I've subscribed to and run by guys who basically talk about writing options and stocks and that, who make consistently well over that. So it's very interesting too, because a comment's been made here, which I'm going to repeat because it's right on track. Someone says here, it's funny how the same governments that are antagonistic or hostile towards cryptos are hunting for their taxes, but they're bugger all to earn it and then they want it. Backdated rulings in the USA is stealing. Well, that is correct. Just so you know, for a bit of a chuckle, when I worked for the ATO, they had a secret room there. Only about 6 people were allowed in the whole tax office, and it was basically where they basically taxed the prostitutes, the illegal brothels, and drug dealers. So basically, they knew all the illegal drug dealers and all the illegal brothels. The deal was they would not basically they took tax from them. They would pay them taxes, and they wouldn't, they didn't really care if it was legal or not legal, provided they paid the taxes. So just realise governments only care about their money. They don't care about anything else. And realise it's the same with cryptos. Governments are going broke, and you're going to hear a little bit more about that now, and understanding why governments are doing what they're doing. So let's have a look. So why are the government chasing so hard? And it's a great opportunity to interlude into this. We'll transition in. So have a look at these statistics as to what's actually going on with our numbers. So in 1965, the government had 8 people working to provide taxes to every pensioner. Okay? So not surprisingly, in 1965, taxes were not that bad, housing prices were lower, etc., etc. Cost of living was very manageable. By 2008, it's cut in half. So we got the problem of an aging population because of medical systems getting better and better. So what's happened now is healthcare's improved. People are getting more enlightened. Like, people now do more organic foods. They go to naturopaths. Doctors' medicines have improved. So people are living longer and healthier. And what this means now, that a lot of people are living longer, but they're still living in the whole idea of when I hit 60 or 65, I want my pension. That's what's happening. So basically, the government are more and more getting less and less money earners to provide them for their pensions. So it doesn't take Einstein to see we're going to go broke or increase our taxes. So Lord Rees-Mogg and Davidson wrote a book, The Sovereign Individual. In this epic book, it foretold the next 50 years ahead and what it would mean. Among other things, they said a race to the bottom, i.e. high-tax countries, will be forced to reduce their taxes as greater freedom of movement opens doors for business owners and investors to move offshore and become sovereign. So the rise of the internet and e-commerce and opening up of greater opportunities for financial education. This is a great book, by the way, and if you're into sovereignty and you haven't read this, this is the Bible of sovereignty, this book. Basically, they said in 1995 that whether Western countries like it or not, they're going to be forced to reduce their taxes or go broke. They've got no choice, because what's going to happen is greater freedom of movement. More and more people will just pull out. And there's a very interesting email, which I'm happy to send to those of you who want it. If you send an email to our help email about the Roman Empire, if you haven't read this, the collapse of the Roman Empire. So basically what happened was the Roman Empire, the parallels to today's situation and the collapse of the Roman Empire is very, very eerie. The Roman Empire started to run out of money because people got lazy in government, and what started happening was all the wealthy people started leaving Rome or putting their money outside of Rome in overseas structures or overseas locations. And Rome, of course, panicked and started squeezing them and putting in more laws, and eventually they tried to make it illegal for people to move money offshore. They couldn't stop it, and Rome collapsed. So realising that the same's happening here now, many countries are starting to move on this. More and more countries are offering concessional tax rates. Any half-decent country is doing it. Hong Kong, 15% taxes, but no taxes on foreign income for foreigners. You've got Singapore similar. You've got Malta, who, although they tax 35%, they give a 5% tax rate only for people who are foreigners using their tax rebate system. To give you an example, Donald Trump in the US has just passed new laws, meaning that small business owners and companies are going to pay 21% tax, much less, but employees are going to pay more. Understand this is happening now. Understand that in New Zealand already they're removing deductions and tax returns for people. England had already done it. US are now removing all work-related deductions for employees in most situations. So if you have got a job, you're going to pay more taxes, and Australia will follow suit. So if you're still in a job and you're not sovereign with a business or investing, you're going to be in a lot of trouble the next year or two, because your taxes are going to go up, business owners is going to go down, and investors. So realising that's what's happening. And the reason that they're doing that is very simple. They're bullies. They know that employees have got no choice. They can't stop. They can't stand up for themselves. The employer deducts their tax from them. Whereas it's much harder with business owners who are getting bigger. So really realise the threat that lies ahead of you. Just out of curiosity, who's getting what I'm saying here? Who's like going, whoa? Who's actually getting that open up for them? Yeah. Getting plenty of people saying this is good. Yep. Want to make sure you're all getting this. Wow. Yep, lots of it. So what I've just done is I put in the text chat the email address, because I've had a couple of people email me. That's our help desk to get the Roman Empire email if you want that, okay? Just send to that one there. They also predicted, now get this one, in 1995 these guys said that cryptocurrencies were going to come. And they said that in time governments would lose their ability to control and tax them. So cartel governments eventually collapsing in the interim, a desperate grab for cash by governments fast running out of money, seizing everything from cash deposits to super under the pretext of law. They said people will start to operate independently if governments will become sovereign. We're seeing this happen now. So I just want you to contemplate that for a minute. So cryptos are the in thing and becoming increasingly popular. The encryption of the blockchain technology and privacy shows a growing drive of people to become free of government stealing their hard-earned wealth and know everything about them. However, we aren't there yet. Firstly, society still hasn't grasped the concept of money as a medium of exchange. So this is the biggest thing. I believe cryptos are on the way forward. Sorry, can you hear me, everyone? There was a slight technical problem there. Yep, great. Okay. So basically, we're not fully there yet. So what's happened is that society hasn't grasped the concept of money as a medium of exchange. So in other words, the whole idea of cryptos is to actually do that. It's for basically people still need to convert their money into cold hard cash, i.e. fiat currency. So this is the big thing. So what's happening right now is that if you're still thinking in terms of cryptos, in terms of the need to put it in a fiat currency, in all honesty, you're missing the point. And although I'm not saying that you can't do it from time to time, cryptos is really like having another currency. It's like having the US dollar, converting it to Australian dollars, converting to French money, to a Swiss franc, that sort of stuff. So really, that's what it is. And more businesses are going to be accepting crypto. I personally now, I accept Bitcoin in my business. So people can pay me in Bitcoin now. People can pay me in Ethereum. So I now accept Bitcoin and Ethereum as a currency and as a legitimate way of payment. And more businesses are actually doing that. So firstly, it's really important to get that and realize that the more that you get that, the more governments will start to lose their power. And we can truly start to get decentralization. The blockchain technology is transforming the world. And for those of you who are familiar with the technology, it's peer-to-peer, which means it's decentralized. No one actually controls the technology. It's all working independently from that one. It completely is breaking the power away from the bankers. Now, in saying that, you can guarantee that the governments will fight back and are. That's why many of the governments are banning it or they're regulating it, and they're panicking because they know it's going to minimize the ability to regulate, the ability to tax people, everything. And very, very important to get that and really become familiar with it and understand how to do it in the transition, understand the tax system so you're not getting on the wrong side, because believe me, the next 2 years are going to hit hard. I have successfully predicted every successful ATO crackdown in the last 15 years since I left the ATO 19 years ago. And the reason why is working there, I know how they tick. And I know, and for example, I told people, right now we're just letting you know they're around. They're going to hit hard next year. Why next year? Because most people are making their gains in this financial year. There's nothing for them to get right now. So they're going to wait until next year when it's time lodge returns, and they're going to hit hard. So, and if you're not prepared, like well before, you're going to be caught out. Even now, they're letting you know they're around, and if you're not well prepared, then they're going to hit hard. And just realize that. So, absolutely critical to be ready and be prepared. And secondly, until government people break their dependence on fiat currency, governments can tax and control their money through the banking system and through crypto exchanges. So we're in really interesting times. So right now, banks are restricting and limiting people's ability to put money through the exchanges, as you know, in Australia. That's a typical Australian response, by the way. So whereas US, for example, made it compulsory to get vaccinations, as an example, Australia said, oh, you can vaccinate your kids all right if you want to, or you can refuse to vaccinate them, but yeah, you won't get any Centrelink anymore, or limited Centrelink. You can't, it's hard to get in the childcare. There's so many things which you get limited in doing, so people go, oh, it's all too hard, and they just go vaccinate their kids. That's basically how they do it. For example, here's another one. You're not actually legally required to have an ABN and run a business in Australia. Did you know that? Who didn't know that, by the way? You do not legally have to have an ABN. However, if you don't, then any business that you contract with or you do business with have to basically, by law, deduct 48.5% tax from you, steal it from the money they pay you. So that's how they do it. They do it by another means. We've also got the ATO announcing a new task force, as well as having done their position paper in December, and their task force on 10th of January to investigate cryptos. And believe me, they're taking this very seriously. More seriously than people realise. I hear some silly stuff being said by accountants and by people. Some really silly stuff. People saying, look, the ATO are not going to be too big on this one. It's out of their hand. I'm like, no, you don't get this. This is the biggest threat to them in offshore taxes. It's a huge threat to them. And we're going to take this very seriously. This has a potential to significantly affect their taxes. Third, we're now seeing various governments crack down, like Korea and China, Australian banks, USA, India. Mind you, a positive development is a recent SEC meeting is showing some positive developments in that the governments are actually saying, they're kind of admitting now that cryptos are here to stay. So some good developments there. So now let's have a good look at what the ATO has said about Bitcoin. So firstly, they say it's a bit like barter, which, would you believe it, they've got a tax barter ruling, where they basically say you need to declare the value of your barter in your tax returns. Well, yeah, right, I put that. That's like saying if you basically do a patio for your friend, John does a patio for his friend Murray, and Murray Exchange gives him some advice on his finances, well, you're technically supposed to declare it. The ATO say, well, yeah, that's what they say. But yeah, in other words, they're saying Bitcoin, same deal. If you receive Bitcoin for something you do, you're supposed to pay tax on it. GST, they say, can apply to cryptos in the same way. If you receive Bitcoin, like if I receive Bitcoin in my company, because you guys pay me to do some planning for you, my team, then we have to lodge it in our BAS. And there's no special exemptions for GST. Here's a juicy and a nasty little one. The ATO pretty much has said that Bitcoin is up for CGT in most situations. So, and what's very cheeky is they say it doesn't actually, they actually said in order to do that, the problem they've got is that if Bitcoin is actually money, it's not actually taxable in capital gains tax. So the cheeky bastards, excusing my French, have basically said, well, although the capital gains tax says that money is not taxable as a capital gain, we regard Bitcoin as not money for the purposes of the CGT provisions. Therefore, it's an asset. Therefore, it's up for CGT if you sell it. Now, they go a little bit further. And to cover questions that I'm going to get, they say, obviously, if you cash out an exchange, then yeah, CGT. So if you got $5 grand Bitcoin, it makes $100 grand, and then you sell it out and cash it out, you have tax. They also say, if you change your Bitcoin into a cash and leave it, say, in your account, that's still taxable. But then here's the real juicy. They say if you turn Bitcoin into Ethereum, or Bitcoin, say, into another currency, that's a capital gains tax event, and you've got to pay taxes on it. Even though on the value, which I personally cannot see how that can be the case, because turning Bitcoin into Ethereum is like turning the US dollar into Australian dollars. It's not a capital gains tax event. But there you have it. That's what they're doing. They're desperate. They need money, and they're going to throw their money at anything. And here's the one that I really want you to get, because I'm getting some questions coming through now about how you get your transaction data. Understand this. Under Section 190B of the Tax Act, and look, in all truth, I'm actually going to put this in here. Excuse me for a minute, but this is so important, I'm going to put this on the slide. Section 190B of the Tax Act, that basically says burden of proof in a tax matter falls on you, not the taxman. Now, that's actually really important to understand this, because this is what that means. Tax office turns up next year. They say to you, hi. And you go, hi. And they say, we've come to audit your things, and we noticed that you put some money into Bitcoin and exchanges, and we got some data on you, and our special team was trolling your social media account, which they do, trust me. They were trolling your social media account. We noticed that you are into Bitcoin, into Ethereum. And you're going, oh, well, yeah. They said, so, okay, so what did you know, and you also noticed that you wrote this thing on your Facebook page saying about how great Bitcoin was, and you just made a list of money, and you've gone and bought a new car. And you're going like, well, yeah. So we said, okay, well, can you please give us some data and, show us how much tax you paid, like have you actually declared it? And then you're like, oh, well, yeah, I can't actually get the data. Or you kind of come up with a figure and you go, well, you made 20,000 gain, you just bought a car worth 60 grand. We're not buying that, can you prove it? And you go, well, no, not really. This is what I've got. They said, okay, well, the burden of proof's on you. So because you don't, we're going to invoke what's called our assets betterment provisions, which they can do. Which means we're going to work out what we think you made and tax you on it. And you go, you can't do that. No, how dare you? And I'll say, well, we can. And we have. And you then go to court and you go to the ATO, you go say to the judge, you say, look at this crap. I mean, they can't do this. The judge says, well, they can. Section 190B. Are you able to prove what they're saying is wrong? And you say, well, no, because I can't get from this and that. And you go, okay, well, you can't prove it. Okay, judgment in favour of the ATO. You've got to pay a tax there, and there's also penalties and court costs. And you walk out in shock. And believe me, this kind of stuff happens more frequently than you would care to admit. Who's a little bit in shock by what I just told you? And believe me, do your own research if you think I'm being extreme on this, but this is what's called assets betterment. Have a look at what's called assets betterment. I'll put it in the text chat for you, or in fact, I'll even put it up here so you can see it. Assets betterment. So let me just put that there for you. So that's for you who just think, okay, we think this guy's being a bit extreme. Like I said, go and have a good look for yourself. Tax treatment of cryptos, it depends if you're buying it for personal use or for business. That's the final thing. Okay, so personal. So let's say you're not running a business, you're just, someone who's got into USI Tech, got into BitConnect or one of those mining schemes for Bitcoin, or you've just gone ahead and bought a crap load of Bitcoin, it's gone up and you made a small fortune. So how does it work? There's no income tax, and that's actually good news because if there was income tax, you're stuck with 48.5%. Capital gains means at least, but you can hold it for more than 12 months and cut your tax in half, which means worst case scenario around 23% or so. So that's the good news. And I also add if it's a hobby, or basically just a personal thing, in less than $10,000, the ATO kind of accepts that you don't have to pay capital gains if it's less than 10 grand. You obviously can't claim tax deductions if it's personal, and you obviously don't have tax issues with things you buy. If you convince your employer to pay you in Bitcoin, it's a fringe benefit. That means you don't pay tax, but your employer does, very simply. In business, if you receive Bitcoin for work done, you declare its value as normal, as I mentioned here, okay? So let's just say that like me, I'm running my company, WealthSafe. I've now got a branding called the Crypto Renegade, which sounds quite sexy and quite fun. If I receive Bitcoin for stuff I do, I'm taxable upon it. Now, that also means if I spend money in Bitcoin to buy things and some of my suppliers, accept Bitcoin, then I can claim a tax deduction for that as well. I have to pay GST, and I can also get a GST credit if I have someone else charge me GST. If I invest in Bitcoin and sell at a profit, there can be a CGT issue. So in other words, if I'm in business and I invest and sell at a profit, then yeah, I can be a CGT issue. Now, by contrast, if I'm mining Bitcoin, which means I'm running USI Tech or doing it as a business, a little bit worse because the CGT doesn't apply, which means you can't get that nice 50% discount on that one. And you're going to end up paying maximum taxes without some darn good tax planning because the ATO really wants a piece of the pie. Now, I'm actually going to, if people have got questions around them right now, which happen to relate, save them to the end. But if you've got one directly relevant now, which you're going to put on the next minute, I'm happy to answer it and clarify it because I'm just going to go back over these again. I'm going to repeat myself and go back to the last slide. So feel free to chuck in a few quick questions if you just want to do that, and I'll see if I can weave them into this. So personal, there's no income tax on selling Bitcoin if you don't carry on a business, but you will get some CGT when you sell it. You can't claim tax deductions, and watch out if you salary sacrifice. So as a personal situation, in simple terms, forget about taxes except if you invest in it, capital gains, but only if it's more than 10 grand. Very easy. That's personal. Business, if you run a company, if you receive Bitcoin for work done, you basically you pay tax on it. If you buy things in Bitcoin for your business, you can claim expenses and you can claim GST credits. You've got to register for GST if you've got to make enough money. And just be aware if you mine Bitcoin or if you invest in Bitcoin in your business, then you're going to have CGT as normal. And if you mine it, you've got income taxes. So the ATO wants its slice of the pie. So I'm asked, is that 10K total portfolio or per transaction? Basically total portfolio, from my understanding. I asked, what about it for super? Yeah, super is just normal tax rate. So if you've got Bitcoin in your super fund, you pay capital gains tax at the normal rate, which is around 10% in a super fund. And nothing if you pull it out. Okay, so is tax planning worth it? I think by now you know the answer. But I've shown you many examples, but you tell me. In April 2016, Peter Martin of the Sydney Morning Herald examined the richest $56 million earners. The results were shocking. He found only 2 of the 56 in Australia paid any tax at all. Of those 2, one paid 4394, and these aren't Google or Apple, by the way, everyone. These are just people who got very wealthy and earning big incomes. One of these became my clients, by the way, and what they say here is very true. These rich income earners paid an average of $1 million per annum to their tax specialists. It's like, for example, I tell people like Uber. There was a big Senate complaint about Uber paying no taxes. Uber just used Netherlands and Luxembourg and places like that. Facebook used Luxembourg. It all comes down to how much money you've got as to how much tax you're going to pay. In other words, the more money that you make, the less tax you pay. I want to say it again and for you to absorb that. The more money you make, the less tax you pay. That's the reality of the system. You have been taught a lie. You have been taught the more money I make, the more tax I pay. And yes, if you have a job, that's true. If you're a job or you're a lawyer who works for one company as a contractor, or doctor who's, can't use the PSI rules and can't split income, but that is correct. The more money you make, the more you pay. If, however, you're a business owner or investor and you know the system, the more money you make, the less tax you pay. So for those of you who've held back making money because you're paying more tax, be encouraged. Go and make a crap load more money. I had a client come and see me just recently, and that client I mentioned turned into $11 million. Because of the money that they'd made, they said, we'll do whatever it takes. Just teach us how to, for the future, invest properly. Obviously, for the past, we've got some things to work out. But for the future, show us what to do. And we'll do whatever it takes. And I did. And was able to solve the problem for them forever moving forward. So, like I said, you tell me. Moral of the story, it's your tax planning and structuring and what you're willing to pay your tax advisors, how far you're willing to go, and how much action you're willing to take, which decides how much tax you pay. I've mentioned Uber. Sanitarium, they're a big food company with Weet-Bix, and I'm sure many of you have heard of it or eaten it at some stage. Sanitarium are owned by the Adventist Church. The Adventist Church is a tax-free entity, and therefore, the way they structure themselves, they pay no tax. Hillsong, the church. Their pastors pay no tax, as an example. I have met clients and many clients who I've worked with. So let's take another example. Peter buys 100 grand of Bitcoin at various prices between January and November. January 2 years ago and November last year, just gone. It's now worth $1 million. With no structuring, Peter stands to pay taxes at 40 to 45%. The FIFO rule applies. The FIFO rule means first in, first out, which means that, whenever he sells it, it's going to go by the earliest one that he's bought will be deemed to be sold first. So Peter, at the very, very least, needs to be looking at moving his Bitcoin to a family trust and doing tax planning for the future. Otherwise, he's going to be raped, pillaged, and plundered. Peter could also move overseas, become an overseas resident, go and get himself residency in somewhere like Panama or Malta or somewhere like that, and do something there. So for someone of those who've got a lot more money, you can do that. For those of you who don't have much, you can at the very least move into a family trust and minimise your taxes so you're not paying 40 to 45%. Okay, so just a bit of a quick feedback. We're in the last 10 minutes before we take questions. So just tell me, folks, who's getting some great value out of this? Who's really learning some good stuff? Who's becoming enlightened? Yep, Gloria Jeans is financed by the Hillsong Church. That is correct. I know the Hillsong Church very well. So now, who wants to learn some weapons to fight back? Okay, Beautiful. So it's important to understand first Australian tax law and indeed top Western countries, and effectively they're very similar in how tax laws work. So it depends if you're a resident or non-resident. So residents basically of Australia or in their home country pay tax on everything. So in 1987 that became the case for Aussie individuals. 1991 it included their offshore companies. So even setting up an offshore company won't change it, not without some very, very specific, very legal planning. If you're a non-resident, you only pay tax in income directly sourced in Australia. So understand that a tax resident, you're taxed on everything. So people use corporate tax rates, like USA's 35%, it's now reduced to 21%, thanks to Mr. Trump. France, Australia, you can notice these. What's intriguing, by the way, is all the countries, the lower the country's tax rate, the less debt they tend to have. That's what's very interesting. Like Hong Kong has got like no debt. Singapore's only got about 200 billion or something like that. Seychelles and BVI, Cayman's got hardly any. Not surprisingly, they don't charge much taxes. Companies are an effective way to minimize tax for businesses in certain situations. With investment businesses such as cryptos, companies may or may not work due to the application of the offshore CFC, CMC laws. But in some situations, depending on how you're willing to structure yourself, it can make a difference. So companies at the very least, or bucket companies I mentioned, can reduce your taxes to around 25 to 27% if used properly, in conjunction with trusts. It can be even less with some planning. You can even get down to around 20%. Still not ideal, but this is what I call for those of you who don't want expensive solutions, you just need to fix up something, so you're not paying 48%, the trust bucket company planning in a bit others can at least get you down to 20, 25% without paying too much in fees. For those of you a bit more serious, there's other stuff you can do 100% legally, depending on what you want to do. So that's companies. Trusts are one of the best ways if you're living in Australia. So those of you who are like, Warren, I plan to stay in Australia for a while, I've got young kids or whatever, family discretionary trusts are fantastic. The politicians and farmers use them. So the 99 Review didn't get rid of them, even though it tried to. So features, only beneficiaries pay tax, not the trust. So that's the biggest thing with a family trust. The beneficiaries pay the tax. That gives a huge incentive because a family trust means you can literally distribute the money to whoever you want to. That's how it works. So you can actually transfer the money to whoever you want to. And both of you stay to the end, the free gift is going to be teaching you a little bit more about things you can do with your planning, around taxes, around trusts especially. But only beneficiaries pay taxes, not the trust. You control, but you don't own the assets. The biggest secret of the super high net worth and the wealthy is they control their assets but don't own it. So someone sues them, they're not going to lose their hard-earned wealth. So let me just give you a very, very basic, simple example. So Donald and Daisy have 3 kids, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Daisy runs a finance broking company, high risk, and basically she makes a turnover in her finance company of $1 million. Oh, sorry, $200,000. Donald, her husband, is part-time or $30K. They decided to trade options and they end up making $100,000 and give $10,000 to their church. Now, just to show you how effective trust can be, if Daisy went and did what probably 19 out of 20 people would do, and she's trading the option, she'd open an account in her own name and start trading. Now, because Daisy's on the highest income, she's going to pay $48,500 in tax. So if Daisy did it in Donald's name, it's a bit better, but still she pays $35,805. So in other words, she still pays a lot of tax. If it was in a trust, they can split their income, they can give to the church, because, by the way, with a family trust properly set up, you can give money to any charity you want, including churches, as a tax deduction, effectively. And just so you know, money is given to a church or most charities. There's only a small number of charities that are actually what's called gift-deductible charities where you can get a tax deduction. If you have a trust properly set up, you can actually give to any charity as a tax deduction. So by doing this, they pay maximum tax of $27,500, but in reality, they'll probably only pay about $25,000 or less. In their situation, it works out because by using Donald as well, they would probably end up paying around about 25% in tax. So that's a family trust. Self-managed super funds. So for those of you who are in your 50s or 60s, this is something worth considering. They brought in these wonderful laws last year, which as accountants can no longer recommend self-managed super fund setups unless they get a special license. I don't have that. So all I can say as a general comment is that self-managed super funds, if you want to control your super yourself, you can invest in Bitcoin through that. Keep in mind the ATO do have some concerns about ownership. So get some professional advice before doing this. So really important. If you're going to be buying a super fund, yes, you can get some tax savings, but you are going to basically need to get professional advice before going ahead and actually doing this to make sure you do it properly. And finally, I will mention foundations. The wealthy have used these for decades. Now, for those of you who are spiritually inclined, they're fantastic. Foundations are a great way to minimize your taxes. For example, if you're spiritually inclined, there are huge opportunities to use these, like E.G. Rockefeller in the 50s. I add the Clintons and Bill Gates use these extensively. There was the WikiLeaks last year when it was releasing everything in 2016. They were doing that. They were actually, the WikiLeaks in 2016, they were doing that. So they were releasing what Hillary Clinton was doing. Australia, for example, has special exemptions. So a registered foundation in Australia, you can use that. And if you're doing, for example, a spiritual work or some kind of deeper purpose work, you may be able to buy cryptos through a foundation as well. So primarily for charitable purposes, a broad definition in law. So a client earned $1 million per annum income and made $300,000. This is a real life case I had of a client. They made $150,000 donations to unregistered charities, which they couldn't claim as a tax deduction. By setting up a family trust and foundation in cohorts, we saved them $69,750 in tax. In other words, we saved them an extra 7% tax per year. Do overseas structures work? They are limited for Aussies unless you're willing to move overseas. And saying that, most countries, including Australia, have CFC and transfer pricing laws to target offshore passive income. But there's still scope for genuine tax planning, especially in the post-Trump era if you work with the right expert. Generally, you just have to realise if you're living in Australia and you're investing in cryptos, the scope to go offshore is next to nothing. It's limited to certain other things. But there are foundations, family trust companies, there are various things that you can do to minimise your taxes. Okay, in fact, before questions, there's another question slide. Let me just finally say, before we open up for questions, so start putting your questions in now as a text chat. There are a few things you should not do in terms of this path ahead of you. One is do anything which cheats the system. Two, blindly trust your accountant about doing your own research. That's why you're here at this webinar. I commend you for coming here. Do your own research, master this. Really make sure you understand this. Don't necessarily rely on me. Look at it yourself. Read it up on Google. Sign up for a mass marketed tax scheme. That's silly. As soon as you see something marketed as a big way to minimize tax, know for certain that it's going to be looked at by the ATO. And finally, bury your head in the sand and not take responsibility for your taxes. So don't do any of those. By contrast, do things 100% legally but out of the box. Do your own research, but work with a tax specialist who isn't just a normal accountant. So in other words, just like a specialist works with a GP in medicine, you want an accountant who specialises in this area. The reason I'm doing this webinar is I don't do normal accounting. If you want a normal accountant, I can put you onto other people. If you're not making a lot of money, if you're just doing a small amount of money from cryptos, you're just beginning the game, then really this webinar is just a bit of a free gift for you, help you get started. You're better off to go to your normal accountant and just do what you do with them. I'm only really going to be able to help you if you're either about to make a bet, or you're planning to make a bet, or you have made a bet. And you really need and also, most importantly, you're willing to be out of the box. So what you should do is do your own research, but get a really good expert, get proper tax planning, personalized, not an offshore marketed scheme or anything like that. Take charge of your taxes and get regular reviews and assistance to keep on top of it. As a final comment, famous story I love that really shows you the value of good tax planning. Kerry Packer's accountant, Neville Coombs, this guy went to him, before he worked for Kerry Packer, he was a genius accountant. The client had a $1 million problem that he couldn't get rid of between three experts. Neville Coombs took one look and 10 minutes later said, I can solve the issue, but I'm not going to tell you till you give me 20 grand. And he balked at it, but half an hour later he gave him 20 grand. Neville Coombs then told him the answer, he walked away, and he got out of his $1 million tax issue. So that's really what I call true tax planning, results solving the problem. Okay, so now I'm going to open up for questions. I'm going to take a 1-minute break to give you some time to put your questions. Please start putting them through, and then I am going to start answering them for you. Okay, so lots of questions coming through. So what I'm going to do, I've gone about 5 minutes over what I planned. I'm going to spend the next 5 minutes answering questions. So that'll be 9:15 Eastern Standard Time, 6:15 Perth time, and then probably take about 5 or 10 minutes to round up. Is everyone okay with that, just taking an extra 5 or 10 minutes? I'll just take it in your word. Yep, great. Okay. So now let's start answering these questions for you. What if you're a dual citizen? Citizenship and residency are two completely separate issues, tax residency. So they're completely separate issues. Could we hold cryptos in a Trezor wallet for a self-managed fund? Well, yeah, it's a difficult question. Hi, Tom. Nice to talk to you again. Hope you're well. But yeah, the short answer is it's difficult. You really will need to have your paperwork in order. The ATO are a little bit awkward with super funds right now and people holding cryptos in it. So just keep that in mind. The ATO are awkward with it right now. And they're basically saying that they're not sure about it because it's hard to prove the ownership belongs to the fund. My view is you can do it. You're just going to need to make sure you've got the right bare trust and paperwork in place. Is it $10,000 hobby commitment in crypto is just a fiat currency investor or the ultimate value of the yield? Good question. It really comes down to the ultimate value of the yield from what the ATO have said. I love that. I need advice. Sign me up. Change for good. Yep. I need advice. Sign me up. Okay. Yep. Excellent. Love to help you. No problem at all. What if you would be glad to help and absolutely solve it for you? Now, how do you think people who are classed as traders will be taxed? I.e. swapping trading stock. How safe is it to have fund cold storage and move to foreign exchange registered in my name, UG, and then sell these cryptos to a cold storage third party and not bring the cash back to Australia? Look, it's a very, very, very good question that you've asked there. And the truth is, the ATO have been doing what they often do in a situation. If you read their position paper, they've deliberately kept things reasonably vague. And they're doing it because what the buggers want to do is turn up in a year and a half or 2 years or a year from now, they'll come up with a ruling when you least expect it, and then they'll say, oh, we think this is taxable, but they're keeping it deliberately vague right now. My view is they're going to come out and they're going to say very clearly that if you've got money and you've done any transactions, even on the exchange, they're going to treat it like a bank account, like a sale and a conversion, or they'll say, swapping Bitcoin for Ethereum is like swapping Bitcoin for gold, and that's, a bit like you swapping US dollars for gold. Hey, that's a transaction. In terms of the technology is incredibly encrypted, but keep in mind, having worked for the ATO and knowing people there, you'd be very surprised at their ability to find things out on you. And if you've ever gone through an exchange that's in Australia or in a Western country or even remotely like that, rest assured that they'll have access to that. And rest assured also that they watch your social media accounts more than you realise. They actually do have teams that go through and read stuff. So just keep that in mind. These guys, when I worked for the ATO, I can remember, and this is in 1990 odd, they had a team that would go through the newspapers daily and read up. And if they read an article about some new millionaire, the first thing they do is look at his tax returns. So you can rest assured, if you've been all over Facebook and promoting USI Tech and talking about that, there's a very reasonable chance that you've been looked at some stage. Just keep that in mind. And even if you haven't been, assume you have. You're better off to plan on that basis, assuming. Are you saying the ATO will be able to track crypto monies even if you never convert back to fiat currencies? In some situations for the really advanced encryption, they can't. There's some very advanced, like the wallets and that and the way they're used. But the reality is most people have gone through exchanges at some stage or things like that, or they're written on social media. So each case is individual. It really depends on your situation. But you'll be surprised as to what they actually contract. So if gains on cryptos are taxable, losses will be tax deductible carry forward. Yes, that you would presume so. If you were a resident elsewhere, would there still be an ATO concern? Money turned into fiat in your Australian bank account. Okay. If you become a non-resident elsewhere, that changes everything. So that's why so many of my clients are doing that. That changes everything. You do have to deal with your stuff from the past, but by and large, that does change everything. Are you taxed only in the country that you live in and reside in? As a rule, yes. Is it moving crypto from personal name to family trust a TGT event? Yes, it potentially is. So you have to plan for that. Correct. It is potentially a TGT event. Hi, Warren. If I'm a non-resident of Australia in a country where we don't have crypto investing taxing laws, so I don't pay tax in the overseas country of residency, we'll have to pay tax on crypto gains in Australia. No, you won't if you set it up properly. So I wouldn't pay any tax on crypto anywhere in the world. In this case, no. Well, it depends on where you're resident. So that's where you need to get some proper planning, because generally you've got to be lodging tax returns somewhere to be able to keep the Australian government happy if you've been a former resident. The way residency laws works is very strict, so you would need to get a proper residency set up elsewhere and some planning around that. But in short, yes, it's possible to reside offshore and pay no tax or 5% tax. In the US, for taxing per trade and exchanges, will the ATO tax us in Australia and the US tax us? Very possible. I'm sure they'll do something like that in the end, because once they realise that they can't do much about it. Do you use hybrid trust or discretionary trust? I use discretionary trust. I've heard that family trust is not as secure. I don't know who told you that. Probably an accountant who doesn't understand them. That's completely untrue. And not as many benefits for deductions, again, untrue. Family trusts have even better capital gains tax, concessions than, say, a unit trust. Just to clarify, we only pay CGT when we sell off the crypto and turn to fiat money, right? Well, no, not necessarily. If you take it and turn it into another currency, like say turn Bitcoin into Ethereum or Altcoin or Litecoin, I think the ATO are going to come out and say that's a taxable event, and they've implied it in their position paper without saying it for definite. So that's my view. Now, if you just bought Bitcoin and left it there, there's no taxable event. Privacy coins like Virgin Monero are better to use if the ledger is hidden. Yeah, possibly so. If I already have a family trust, do I pay CGT when transferring crypto ownership? Possibly yes. Yeah, it's a CGT event. You got to plan for that. Keep in mind that being myself someone who, like I mentioned, was an underground movement, and I've even read books and studied books about how to become private, how to make yourself disappear off the radar, and you'd be amazed how easy it is for people to get tracked who think that they can't, because your footprints are left. And one of the guys in the underground movement, who was a tremendous tracker down of people, he pretty much said it was virtually never a person they couldn't track because people end up doing things. So understand, if the ATO really want to find out about your patterns and your money, good chance you've spoken about it on social media or somewhere, and a good chance that they can actually, and because of Section 190B, they can deem it. Now, again, for those of you who think I'm being paranoid, really I'm not. I'm just telling you the facts as to how it works. In all likelihood, there'll be many of you who the ATO won't even look at because there's too many people. They can't do everyone. But for those of you they do look at, they have these powers, and in all likelihood they can find out. Keep that in mind. They are far smarter and more advanced, and they know every trick in the book. So keep that in mind. So your choices are either to, one, tax plan properly, or two, just hope you're one of the ones who isn't looked at. That's really your choice. And it's up to you which one you work. I don't really work with people who hope the ATO won't look at you. I just say, well, yeah, best of luck. Okay, that's all the questions. So now I'm going to go through and finish off like I promised and just share how you can work with me moving forward. Okay, so who would like to work with us in some capacity to really do something around your cryptos and make sure the tax man doesn't plunder your village in your vault? Just give me a yes please, and sounds good, or wow, or awesome, or sexy. You can even say that if you want. Okay, great. Getting plenty. Beautiful. So, okay. Basically, there's really three things you can do, and it's always good to know your choices and then make your choice. And whichever choice you make, as long as you make a choice, that's the most important thing I'd like to see you all do in this webinar day. Choice one is do nothing and hope for the best. Just kind of go, you know what? Hopefully it won't look at me, or I'll suck up the high taxes and just give my money to the ATO and just stay quiet. Or just hope for the best. Be one of those two extremes. Number two is to sit down and work it all out yourself. If you can do that, you're doing really well, and I'm sure it's certainly possible, but it's like me trying to work out the whole Facebook advertising regime, for example. I mean, I find it confusing, so I engage an expert. I know enough about it, I studied enough about it to at least know what I'm doing, but I engage experts to help me. But that is a choice you can make as well. Choice three is get some tax planning to ensure you keep your gains and protect it and be sovereign. That's your third choice. So I always like the 80-20 rule, that generally the people who become financially independent and then become eventually free are the ones who take the maximum amount of action and do something about it. And you would have seen from the tax planning charts I showed you that structuring and keeping more of your money means you're going to have more in 5 years' time, or 3 years' time, or 1 year's time, or 10 years than if you don't. So let me just quickly show you, before we make the offer that we're going to give you, who I can help and who I can't. So I'm going to do that, then I'm going to make the offer, then give you the gift. You're expecting crypto gains, so the people I can help is you're expecting to make a reasonable amount of money from it. So in other words, if you just got like 5 grand in cryptos and you make 50 grand a year, you're better off to go to your normal accountant and stay there. You know, you won't get the value from me, and you'll pay less money to them. So generally, you really are truly serious about investing in cryptos. You expect to make reasonable gains. You're planning on it. This year, I'm sure those of you who know, it's a great time I see ahead because the crypto thing is expanding. What amazes me is the governments are hitting it like left, right, and center, assaulting it, and it's still standing, and if anything, growing and getting stronger. I'm dealing with clients right now who, the more it's happening, the more money they're making. They're trading ICOs. They're just absolutely killing it. You know, I've actually got one of my clients who I highly respect who's made a lot of money from it mentoring me right now, because there's more money to be made in this next year, I believe, and just about possible for those of you who are educated. So you're expecting to make those gains, and you really are serious about it. So if that's you, then yeah, I can help you. You're committed to planning your cryptos to pay less tax, and you're willing to pay for quality advice if you know you'll get the result. E.g., you're the kind of person who you wouldn't like to spend $1,000, even $1 with me, or even $500 with me, or $1,000 with me if I can't help you at all. To you, that you'd be annoyed. But you'll happily pay me $15,000 if I will save you 50 grand in tax that otherwise you weren't aware of before. Just out of curiosity, who's that? Like who would describe themselves like that? In other words, you're like, Warren, I'll happily pay you for results, mate. If you and your team can get me the result, we'll pay well. If you can't get us the result, then yeah, we don't expect to pay you much at all. Just give me a yes, or that's me, if that's definitely you. Great. I'm very much like that myself, by the way. I am very, very much that way. When I work with people more and more these days, I work on results. On various mentors, I work a lot on results with them. I even volunteer to do that because I want them working hard for me. I've got a business mentor right now who's helping me on some new levels. And, I personally, I like to pay people for results. I like to give them a reward because I know that if I do that, they'll give me more attention. And that's the truth. I remember with my Facebook funnel I did 2 years ago, I was paying on results. And my guy was working very hard because he knew that every sale I got, he got more money as well as the upfront payment he got. And so I'm the same. If I know that getting a higher result, I will work harder. And it's human nature that we do that. The third one is you take responsibility for your life choices. In other words, but you're that kind of person. The ones I really honestly can't help is you just don't want to upset your accountant. You prefer just to pay time-based account. In other words, you'd rather say, Warren, what's your hourly rate? And I'd say, I don't do hourly rates. So you're better off to go back to your normal accountant. You might say $250 an hour, $300 an hour. Every time you call me, I'll bill you. If that's what you prefer, then we're not the firm for you. You don't want to, we can't help you. And we honestly recommend you stay where you are. And keep in mind, I don't do tax returns either, by the way. So what we're doing doesn't conflict with your normal accountant. We're specialists. We will be helping you, guiding you, and then you'll be going back to your normal accountant or accountants recommended by us if you're not happy with your accountant. Just out of curiosity, who here is actually not happy with your accountant and really would like to find out a bit more and get some better options to save some taxes? Okay, great. Yep. Quite a few. Yep. Well, we can always help as part of that process if needed. Number 2, we can't help is your crypto gains plus your job or business income is under 150 and likely to stay that way. Like I said, you'll get better results or the same results and you'll pay less money. You'll end up in front of your normal accountant. Thirdly, you're just a procrastinator. I mean, you're the kind of person that will never do anything anyway. And you tend to just kind of watch webinars, get excited, but not take action. Again, you're better off to save your normal accountant and save your money. Okay, so what's the next step to work with me and my team? So personalised advice or educating yourself, as I mentioned. So for personalised advice, we generally take a number of clients at a time, a small number, who are really serious players to personally help them pay less tax. So in other words, we generally work with people who we think fit well with us and we with them. In other words, a mutually good fit. So we fit well for your situations, you like us, and we like you, and we can genuinely help you. That's what's number one important to me. I really hate it when I get someone who I really can't help or it doesn't feel right for me. How it works is that the offer today is to apply for a free strategy session. And one of my girls is a crypto expert who works with me and she talks with you and gives you a free strategy session to go through your options. And what we do is we do an overview of your facts. We perform a clinical diagnosis on your tax issues and prescribe remedies to fix it. You walk away with a clear plan on how to structure your cryptos to deal with your past and future gains. So in other words, what will happen is you'll walk away with a plan and some options on what you can do to walk away. So you'll walk away going like, yep, this is what you can do. These are the idea. For example, we think you need to do something. You'll know if you have an issue. If you don't have an issue, we will be told and we won't waste your time or ours. So we do a full strategy session. And when I say 15 minutes, if it goes a bit longer, that's okay. The main aim is to really help you walk away and give you something of value. So to find out if you're a good fit to work with us, complete the link below. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to put this up here so I can put this in the text chat for you. So I'm putting this in the text chat for you. So what this is it's about it'll take 10 minutes of your time, and it's a quirky little thing, as you'll find. It kind of, for some of you might find it a bit weird. Some of you will laugh at it. I deliberately keep it a bit quirky, and the reason why is, I'm out of the box. I'm serious in one level, but I'm quirky on another level. And what this does, it just helps us really see if we can help you and ask the right questions. So you get a 15-minute strategy session and a personalised tax assessment of how we can help you. So what I'm also going to do now is take questions on that one before we end. And what I want to do is give you your gift right now. So for those of you who stayed, in line with my promise, I'm now going to give you this gift. So it's going to be uploading onto the GoToWebinar. And I'll tell you once it's uploaded now. So you should be able to see your handouts and you should be able to find it. In fact, you've been such a great bunch, I'm going to go a bit further. I'm actually going to give you something else, a bit more than what I promised you. I'm in a generous mood, so let me have a look. See what else I can find for you. Okay, I'm going to give you something as well about asset protection as well. And that should be uploaded. So if you could just give me a comment in the textbook, in the chat box, telling me to say, got it, or whatever else. Excellent. Okay. So any questions which you want to ask of me now? So that's the link for the strategy session. I do add finally, now, for those of you who are here to actually save taxes, we guarantee we won't charge you more in fees than we save in taxes. So in other words, now if you're not coming for tax saving but more for other things, that's why I said conditions apply. Like if you're coming purely for asset protection and you're aware up front that we can't really save much in taxes, then obviously that won't apply. But for those of you who really do want to save taxes, and that's the main reason, and you give us the information that we need to make that assessment, then yeah, we won't charge you more in fees than we save you, which means we really can't save any tax, you don't pay. It's that simple. So I think it's a pretty fair guarantee, you would agree. Okay, so any questions? So who here, just so I know, is going to lodge an application? Just give me a like me or a yes if you're going to be lodging an application, if I can expect it from you. Great. Gosh, plenty of people. This way we can know to expect it. That's great. Anyone else? Yep, great. Okay, excellent. Yeah, we got a lot coming through here. So yeah, some are already here. Yep, I noticed some of you, my clients are already here. That's fantastic. Okay, so any more questions? Hang on. Okay, there's one coming through here. Can setting up structures really help me save up my taxes? Will setting up structures really help me save my taxes in the future? Like by how much? Short answer is yes. It will help you save in taxes. It depends on how much. Will depend on how much you're earning. So that's the short answer to that one. Another question, the strategy session, will that cover all my queries? Well, no, not really. The strategy session will be a bit of an overview to see if we can help you. It's really more about seeing can we fit and get a bit of an idea that says, yes, we can save you some taxes. I think you need some structuring or you need this. And then you'll be given options to move forward with us further at the strategy session. That's how that works. Another one, can I get a copy of the webinar? Short answer is no, I don't release replays, but there is going to be an opportunity to possibly get the replay in exchange for in exchange for people helping me out with something. So stay tuned. I'll be sending out something in the next little while about that one to give people an opportunity to get the replay in exchange for completing a survey or something like that. So that will be in the coming days. I'm not sure when yet. Okay, but yes, otherwise I don't, as you know, those who come to webinars know I normally never give replays. And I still won't be giving this one out as a general thing. Also, for those of you who are interested in upcoming events or courses that we're going to be doing, just type in interested in here right now in the text chat. If that's you, if you're genuinely interested, just type in the word interested if you're really interested in actually being part of courses and things like that. Because we're looking at doing some courses in the future on not just on crypto taxes, but even from my experience as an accountant and being mentored by the top people in the whole crypto world, investing, that kind of stuff. Who's very interested in that? Yeah, I'm getting a lot of it. So just type very interested. Yep, okay, great. Getting plenty of interest in this one. Okay, so what I would suggest you do now, thank you everyone for your amazing attention. I'm sorry that it's gone a bit over, but we had a lot of questions and I really wanted to give you a bit extra tonight than normal. I hope you don't mind. What I ask you to do now is for those of you who are going to do an application, jump on now. It takes 10 minutes of your time, get it done, and that way, as you know. But if you leave something, you tend to get busy in the stream of life and things happen. So just jump on now. It will take you 5 or 10 minutes. If you really can't be bothered going for too long, just keep it to the point, and you can even just complete it out and just say, I'll give more information once you email me in a particular part if you need to. For those of you in the mood, the more information you give us, obviously the more value we can give you in the strategy session. So be generous for the information in the application, or if you're tired tonight and just want to quickly complete it, so you just put your expression of interest in, just type in a comment saying, I'll give you more information when you email us or something like that. And then when we email you, give us plenty of information, because we want to make sure that by the time you come to the strategy session, we're going to give you absolute maximum value so you walk away a very happy person from what's happened, one or the other. Okay. Yep, I've got your note, Sharon. No problem. I'm happy to talk to you about that separately. Excellent. So just send me a message on that one. Okay, thanks a lot, everyone. I really appreciate your time and your generosity in being so focused tonight. I hope you get good benefits from the free gifts. Stay tuned. Look forward to seeing you on the next webinar.